Well, the TikTok ban goes into effect Sunday unless either the Supreme Court or Biden can stop it. The Supreme Court could issue a ruling tomorrow. The SCOTUS website says it may announce opinions on the homepage Friday, starting at 10 a.m. Eastern. So we'll see if they decide a sale like this can be forced or not. There were reports that Biden's team was exploring options on how it can avoid the app being shut down, but now reports are Biden just won't take action to enforce the ban against app stores or internet providers. Trump's team is saying they're considering an executive order to halt the sale for 2 or 3 months. And TikTok CEO, Taiwanese businessman Xiao Zhichu, who's Taiwanese. Remember, there was Tom Cotton who's like, have you ever served in China? Were you doing things for China? He goes, sir, I'm Taiwanese. Or no, sorry, he's Singaporean. He's not Taiwanese. He's actually Singaporean. I got that wrong. But I didn't get it as wrong as Tom Cotton, who kept accusing him of being Chinese. But the CEO of TikTok, Singaporean businessman Xiao Zhichu, is expected to attend Trump's inauguration. The powers that be banned TikTok under the guise of protecting Americans from Chinese influence. But the real reason was protecting Israel, since so many on TikTok were against them. And that was the only impetus for them to go and suddenly take action and ban TikTok. We got all these young people and they're against Israel. We got to stop all this propaganda. But okay, let's just take the ban at face value. If it was to prevent Americans from Chinese influence, this has massively backfired. Wah, wah. TikTok refugees, as they're now called, have fled to a Chinese app called Shu, known in English as Red Note. And this app has allowed Americans to openly communicate with Chinese nationals as well as see what life is like inside of China. And Americans are now claiming to feel shocked and lied to by Western propaganda. Let's watch some of the videos. Take a look.
The Chinese said that Americans are not free because the American TikTok refugees asked the Chinese, what stereotypes do you have about us? And I'm thinking they're going to say, like, we're fat and we like junk food. No. They said that we think that we are free, but we are not, that we live under an oligarchy and that we essentially live in a corporation. And we're fat.
So she's saying, I'm out of here. I'm moving to China. Moving to China after one day on Red Note. Yeah, after seeing how amazing it is.
Hey, okay, so this Redbook thing, the wildest part about this entire shift to Redbook is that U.S. citizens now are connected to Chinese citizens. The entire U.S. propaganda machine that makes us afraid of them, it makes us think that their lives are shitty or in this authoritarian realm. It's just completely shattered. It's broken. Not only that, but someone was just talking about watching a grocery haul on Redbook and how they couldn't believe how much groceries that these Chinese citizens had because they can afford groceries. It's thank you, Chairman Mao. Thank you, President Xi. Fuck you, Biden. Fuck you, Trump. Fuck you.
American TikToks are flocking to Chinese social media Red Note, aka Xiaohongshu, in protest of looming TikTok ban.
And they are calling themselves TikTok refugees.
So what's the vibe on Red Note?
It's wholesome and fun. Americans are trying out Chinese phrases, asking for advice, and getting warm and funny responses from Chinese users. Some Chinese creators even making Red Note 101 guides to help them settle in.
But why Red Note, not Instagram or Facebook?
Because this is what real cross-cultural connection looks like, raw, genuine, and healthy.
These interactions are breaking down stereotypes about China, and let's be honest, this is exactly what the US and China need right now, building bridges, not walls.
To the politicians thinking banning TikTok will isolate China, maybe take a look at what Americans are actually doing
on Chinese apps.
Hello, TikTok refugees. I am Lucia, an elementary school student in China. I on winter vacation. My mom told me that many African TikTok have joined Xiaohongshu because TikTok might be bad. I'm sorry that you can't fully enjoy yourselves on TikTok now. But at the same time, I'm really happy because on Xiaohongshu, you can know the real China and the daily lives of Chinese people. I live in Shenzhen, Guangdong province, southern China. It's near Hong Kong. Shenzhen is a modern dynamic city and a special economic zone. We have lovely beaches like Damisha and Xiaomeisha. Also, it's a global high-tech hub with famous firms such as Huawei, Tencent, and DJI. The people here are friendly. Shenzhen has diverse food, both local Cantonese and international ones. Welcome to learn Mandarin with me. If you get a chance, welcome to visit Shenzhen, China.
A lot of
You're gonna love
people
this one.
ask me, they want to know it so bad. They want to know it so bad. They want to know, how does America sound in Chinese? In Chinese. Like how China sound in English. Well, I'll tell you what, it's very easy. It's called Meigua. Meigua. It's very easy. May is like Mayday. Maybe I'll do it, maybe I will not. Nobody knows. Gua is like Google. You put the frontal part of it and you put an option. Meigua, and you only take the ought of it. Meigua, 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 Meigua. Very easy. Very easy. China, China, China. Meigua, 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 Meigua.
That is the best Trump impression. Okay, so these are some of the videos that of the TikTok refugees being welcomed and also feeling like, what in the world? I'm now seeing China in a whole different way. Daniel Dumbrell, we've had him on the show before. He lives in China. He tweeted this one out. He says, Zhao Hongshu opened a window for Americans to learn more about China by directly interacting with Chinese people. These exchanges also seem to be sparking an even deeper appreciation among locals for their own systems, an all-around massive PR fail for U.S. government propagandists. And he shares these screenshots. Can we talk about healthcare in China? This person wrote, in America, I caught the flu, got asthma. I stayed in the hospital for 2 days and got charged $56,000. Of course, I didn't pay it, but that was ridiculous. This person wrote, crazy. Next time, take a flight to China and get the cure, then go back to the U.S. This person wrote, just the surgery bill for my knee replacement in the U.S. was $85,000. That didn't include anesthesia, doctor scans, or blood work. Chinese people responding, expensive, terrible, too expensive. You're correct. Many people must choose between their medicine or food. It's really ridiculous, crazy. One person wrote, this is so crazy. Knee replacement is really small surgery in China, and it costs less than $5,000. If you have insurance, you only pay a little. Another American wrote, saying, American here, my mom broke her shoulder a few years ago and needed surgery. It cost over $100,000. And these Chinese wrote, too expensive. The registration fee at Chinese hospitals is approximately $2. And the registration fee for specialists is around $10. A blood test costs about $20 to $100. A CT scan is approximately $50. And an MRI scan is roughly $100 to $200. And this person wrote, that sounds like a dream to us Americans. So many people lose homes and go into debt just to get life-saving treatments because of insurance companies. So, people are learning about what's healthcare like in China. It looks like it's a lot better of a system. You don't have to go bankrupt or mortgage your home if something tragic happens to you. Arnaud Bertrand, who's also been on the show, he's also lived in China for a period of time. And he writes, oops, it's starting. And he shows this screenshot. Chinese people, can you tell me what's something Western media tells us about China? What's totally incorrect in reality? So what's something Western media tells us about China that's totally incorrect in reality? And the responses on this are, people saying things like no children labor in China. We try our best to provide for kids. We believe kids are the hope. Kids are like sunrise every day. So, we're always being told kids are working in factories for $1, and they're saying that's not true. Another person wrote, we don't have a credit system to evaluate each person's behavior. So that's the social credit system that we're told about. They say we don't have that. The Chinese also said, I came up with one, 99.999% of Chinese do not eat dogs. In the past, some regions, one in the Korean ethics region, had the tradition, but now it's gradually abandoned. So Another person wrote this: some Chinese people eat dogs, but that does not represent the entire population. Yeah, I've heard that one my whole life being Vietnamese. There was always jokes about, oh, your family eats dogs. And I'd ask my mom, do we eat dog? And she would say, no, don't say that. Don't say that. Only very poor people eat dog, and, very, very poor because they had no choice. And, it's a very, so anyway, I'm not foreign to those jokes either, being Vietnamese myself. The Shu Hongshu CEO, his name is Mao Wenchao. He gave this welcome video to Xiao Hongshu. Here it is.
Hey guys, just want to make a quick video about Xiaohongshu, introducing you guys to this platform. So tip number one, we mainly use this platform for searching for suggestions, such as for restaurants, such as for shopping malls, even for like makeup tips. And secondly, this platform is mainly Chinese speaking, but do feel free to speak English and post English content, because I believe there are a lot more English speaking people on this platform nowadays, and like we need to build this community, and there are a lot of celebrities trying to register for the account here. So what matters more is like we build the community starting from now. And thirdly, I want to say never stop sharing your voice, because a platform such as Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, YouTube, Xiaohongshu should never be banned. Like people sharing their actual voice there, like about wildfire in LA, about Gaza, and a lot of other things, right? These are real people's voice. What matters more is that we never stop making content. So yeah, welcome to Xiaohongshu. Let me know what your thoughts, let me know what you're interested in. I speak both Chinese and English, so like, feel free to ask me any questions.
I have to show you this stupid tweet by stupid Tom Cotton. So he says this: TikTok will either be sold in the next few days or it will be banned. Either way, communist China will no longer exercise massive influence over our nation and our children. Wah, wah, not true. In fact, now, on TikTok, Americans just watch other Americans making content, stupid content, people like, I don't know, shaking their ass and doing stupid stuff. Now these Americans have flocked over to Xiaohongshu, and they're seeing China. They're interacting with Chinese people. It's actually more so. They're getting more interaction, more indoctrination from China than TikTok ever gave them. This was a massive backfire. And not only that, but we all know the real reason why they banned TikTok wasn't really China. I mean, China had something to do with it, of course, because they're like, we got to limit Chinese influence. But a lot of it had to do with Israel and all of the Israeli organizations, the anti-Semitic organizations coming out saying, we got to stop anti-Semitism. And it's all spreading on TikTok because all these people are saying free Palestine, and they're showing watermelons, and they're saying from the river to the sea. So we have to shut down TikTok. And that was the real reason why they did it. But then there you go. You got the Xiaohongshu CEO, Mao Wenchao, saying, we're going to talk about everything here from the wildfires to Gaza. And you could say so it's not all of these TikTok refugees that have now fled to Red Note or Little Red Book or whatever you want to call it. It's Xiaohongshu. Tom Cotton, you're an idiot. You're just an idiot. I'm sorry. Actually, I'm not sorry. You should be sorry for being as dumb as you are. And here's a guy that's highly educated, comes from Ivy League schools, and yet questioning the TikTok CEO who's from Singapore, kept asking him questions about his loyalty to China. I mean, it was just, the guy is nuts. And now he's still gaslit into believing, see, we saved the day. He's like an old fogey grandpa. And I think he's younger than me. And yet this guy doesn't know anything about social media whatsoever. Okay. We are going to get into some of the questions that I've seen a lot of people push back about. First of all, some people have pointed out, why do all these people speak English? Isn't that suspicious to you? Like maybe these are Chinese spies. They're speaking English. They're trying to indoctrinate Americans. There's also been some questions about, are they showing us the real China? Are we just getting the China they want us to see? What about censorship and control? We're going to get into that. But first, let me show you what this app looks like. I downloaded it. I set up an account. I know some people are like, Kim, there you go, giving all of your information to the Chinese. And also one of the big investors into the Chinese app was actually an Israeli company. So people are like, how long are they really going to be allowed to talk about Gaza on this app if the Israelis have heavily invested in it? We don't really know. I know they expressed interest. I don't know if they actually did some investment into it. But nonetheless, look, the Israelis, I'm pretty sure Mossad has all of my information. So what's some more? And I'm not afraid of these apps knowing some of my info. So anyway, that's not my big concern. But let me just show you what this app looks like. I scrolled through it. I took a screen record of me going through my phone and going through the app so you could kind of see what it looks like. So here it is.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Hangzhou, China, the capital of Zhejiang province, famed for its picturesque West Lake and rich cultural heritage.
Look at this yogurt painting. Edible art. Wow. Now, some of these, I don't know if that's AI. It's just on the app. I looked at it. It looks amazing. I don't know if it's AI. Could be. Look at this, the images on these buildings. I've never seen anything like this in America. I think this is an AI video, but it looked pretty. You know, all these cooking videos from China.
Wow,
look at this car.
好美啊，颜色。我的。
Oh my god. Oh, look at those cute kids. McDonald's. Yeah, that's a cartoon. Realized that. Look at this city. It's incredible. Yummy. I don't know what this is. Someone's collection or something. It's so easy to get addicted to this. I don't know where this is. I don't know if that's probably AI. That's AI. Still looks good.
公主，请上车。
They're really into cutesy. What in the... They really adopted American Christmas.
2, 1, go.
Just scrolling through the app. Recently, many Americans came to Little Red Book. I'm a college student. I need to learn English and practice my spoken English. Can you help me? I'm an American high school student. So pretty. Oh, let's look at one of their cars. Look at this. See how the steering wheel's adjusting while she's getting in? Hello Kitty sodas. Cinnamon roll. Let's see what else we have on. Oh, look at these cars. Is that, I don't know if that's China's Disney, like Shanghai Disney. Possibly. Look at this beautiful place.
好漂亮，好漂亮。
I thought getting a leaf in my coffee was good. And then I see they can do a Hello Kitty. Look, I am not going to be surprised if now we've got all these Americans flooding this app. It's the #1 app in the App Store. I think it's going to be, I think we can expect a lot of these trends that are highly Asian. You see them a lot in Japan and China, over in Asia, a lot of the cutesy, the Hello Kitty stuff, that's even popular here, but I see it exploding even more so. I see the fashion exploding here in the United States. It's more cutesy, more colorful. You know how the girl, she had her car with flowers and cutesy things. I see that I see these trends, the makeup trends in Asian that are popular in Asia, Korea, China, Japan. I mean, you're going to see all of these trends, I think, coming here to the United States because people are watching this and they're thinking, whoa, very similar to how the world would see American movies and American celebrities and want to copy America. I think now we're going to see a tide shift and people are going to be wanting to copy what's going on in Asia. So I want to show this tweet. This is from Yin Sun, and he says, sorry, refugees, because I want to get to the question about censorship. Who are these people that are speaking English? Are these just the social media influencers? Like, let's get into the downside of all of this. There is no free speech in China. Let's be clear. And first of all, let me also be clear on something. I'm Vietnamese. So those of you that are immediately going to start calling me like some sort of a Chinese shill, before you do that, you should maybe learn a little bit of culture. And one of the culture things you should know is that Vietnam is inherently anti-China. Vietnamese people have a natural bias and racism against Chinese. So I didn't grow up with this love China, China this, China that. Vietnam has a very long history of wars with China. We have a very shared culture. We share New Year, for example. We call it Tet. They call it Chinese New Year or Lunar New Year. So we do have a lot of shared things. We use a lot of the same. Back before France occupied Vietnam and gave Vietnam, now Vietnam uses like letters. The French gave them the alphabet and writing in actual letters. Prior to that, Vietnamese wrote in Chinese. So there's a lot of shared culture there. But and I'm sure it's shared genetics. I think when I took a genetic test at one point, they said I was like 4% Chinese. But there's an animosity there. So don't think just, all of us Asians like each other. In fact, you won't find a more racist part of the world than Asia. Asians hate each other, typically from various different countries. They're biased against one another. So let's just get that out of the way right now. I'm Vietnamese. I'm not Chinese. I don't have any bias against China or Chinese people. I don't have that. I certainly heard it a bit growing up from my family, but I don't have that myself. I also don't have rose-colored glasses about China. I feel like, a very real perspective of China. So I'm not looking at this from the Americans that are saying China bad, China genocide, China child labor, China this, China that. I don't agree or think they're correct on most of the propaganda that they say. At the same time, there is a big swarm of people that think China could do no wrong, that all of everything that we're told about China is a lie, and that China is great and a wonderful and free place, and everybody's just lying to us and propagandizing us. I also don't agree with them. I have, I think, a healthy and more normal perspective of China, not as great as, guys like Arnaud Bertrand, who's lived there. Or Daniel Dumbrell, who lives there. There's others who have, I think, they've lived there. But I have a different perspective from growing up in half Asian, half white household and understanding the perspective and the culture of Asians and Chinese in general, in particular, meaning like the questions about democracy. China is not a democracy. They don't value it. Now, they call it a different type of democracy. They know they don't have our type of democracy. They look at our system and they think that it's lazy and inefficient and bureaucratic and too much red tape and all this stuff. And so they think we're stupid for having the system that we have. They view it as totally and completely inefficient. And when you look at how quickly they've been able to build their country, are they wrong on that? They have a different mentality when it comes to leadership and democracy. Fundamentally, democracy is not something they value in that way. As long as things are running well and everybody gets what they need and it's a good system, they like that. They want to keep it going. They don't feel the need to swap out leaders every 4 years. They don't see the point in that. We try to push that on them, right? We try to say, oh, well, you're not free. You don't have a democracy. And they look at us and say, you guys are idiots and you change your system every 4 years and it's completely bought off by corrupt big money donors. And, there's a lot of finger pointing at each other and saying your system is bad. Us more at them than them at us. They're kind of like, do your own thing if that's what you want to do. It's inefficient. But China takes a very Asian mentality. And Asian mentality is you worry about yourself. There's not a lot of gossiping. There's not a lot of, you see that, you see, how do I say this? Like, you go to the hair salon and there's these old movies of the women sitting there in the nail salons and the hair salons and they're gossiping about everything. And you don't really see that in Asian culture. It's private. You keep to yourself. You don't talk about the bad that's going on in your family or your relationships or with your children. You keep that amongst your own little family and you just hunker down and worry about doing what you need to do. So it's a very different mentality on that front. They're not pointing the finger at us and saying, oh, let's talk about America and how bad it is. They're like, you do you, we do us. Stop, just don't get in our business. Leave us alone, we'll leave you alone. It's very much like that. But they don't have freedom. My family came to visit me from Vietnam. Vietnam is also a communist country. And I asked, my one cousin just came to visit in November. We're the same age. She's never been to America. I've seen her before, but in Europe and in other places. My family goes to Vietnam a lot. So she doesn't really need to come to America very often, but this was her first visit here. She is married to someone who's Chinese, Malaysian Chinese. And they go to China all the time. So, and they've been going, and her husband's parents are from China. He's been going to China his whole life. So I asked him, what has it been like in China? Are we seeing only these amazing places and that's just what they want us to see? Or is it all like this? Like, do you see homelessness or poverty anywhere? And they're like, we don't, we go there, we don't see homelessness at all. And they go for business trips. They go for, they're seeing the workers, they're meeting the workers for my cousin's husband's job. They're meeting with, they're not just tourists looking around at the areas that China wants them to see. They're actually big in business. They're doing a lot of factory work, working with the factories and working with the people who work in the factories and going to areas where the factories are, which are not these shiny big cities. So they're seeing all of it. And they're saying, no, it's all the improvement in China over the last 30 years has been epic and incredible. And they don't have homeless people. Somebody then mentioned, well, where are they hiding the homeless people? And my cousin said, in homes. They're hiding them in homes. That's where they stick them. Ooh. So, but my family from Vietnam will say, look, we're both communist countries, but Vietnam, we are freer than Chinese. We have more freedom than them. Why is that? The Chinese government is very big brother. They do surveil. Maybe it's not a social credit system, but it is definitely, they are big on cracking down on disinformation, misinformation, not letting people say certain things. You have all the freedom you want, so as long as you stay in your lane. So you can be free and creative, and you could start businesses. You can get rich in China. You could do all of these things, so as long as you stay in your lane. What do they mean by that? They don't think you need to be criticizing the government. Like, the way you criticize the government has to be very specific. It has to be about policy, not people. If the policies are working, they're going to crack down on you criticizing that because they don't want there to be discord or dissent. They also are really skeptical of foreign meddling, just like we are trying to point at TikTok and say they're meddling with our youth. So there is a lot of that thinking, and they do crack down on that. There is no real freedom of speech, so as long as you stay in your lane. So that's where this tweet comes in, this Yin Sun tweet. Let's get to this one now. It says, sorry, TikTok refugees, but our platforms implement strict content moderation policies that are aimed at fighting disinformation. What you should know before coming to our platform is Taiwan is not a country. Tibet is already free. COVID didn't come from China. There are academic studies tracing the origin of COVID in Europe and the US before the pandemic expanded to China. There's no Uyghur concentration camps. There was no massacre in Tiananmen. Mao didn't starve 45 million Chinese. The US was partly responsible for the famine that occurred in China due to its embargo on China at the time, and the other reasons were unusual droughts. And it's approximately 10 million Chinese who died during the famine. And since you're at it, there's no social credit score in China. Islam is not prohibited in China, and we don't destroy mosques. China is also a democracy, but of another kind. We call it whole process democracy here in China. The overwhelming majority of Chinese people don't eat dogs. We do not hate America or the West. We love all countries. The one country, two systems is more than ever alive in Hong Kong. China didn't breach any treaty. And what he's referring to is when there were some people that would get on Red Note and they would say, get on Red Note and start posting Taiwan is a country, free Tibet, COVID came from China, Uyghur concentration camps, Tiananmen Square massacre, Mao starved 45 Chinese. And what popped up was a suspension note from Red Note, like, you are now suspended from this social media account. So that is true. China does not have the freedom of speech that we demand here in the United States. We get on social media's case for not giving us pure freedom. We get on social media's case when they ban accounts, when they censor content. China does censor content, and you are not free in that way there. You're free, as free as you want to be, so as long as you stay in your lane in China. And that is just very true. Why do they speak English? This was another one. I got a lot of people commenting saying, don't you notice they all speak English, and isn't that suspect? No, it's not suspect at all. Again, my cousin, she's never been to the United States. We speak to each other in English. She obviously speaks Vietnamese, so she speaks to like my mom in Vietnamese and everybody else in Vietnamese. But her and I speak English. In fact, her son, who's 5 years old, doesn't even speak Vietnamese. He's born and raised in Vietnam. He speaks English. That's his primary language. It was shocking when they came to visit. My other cousins were like, how are we going to play with him? They're all the same age. And how are we going to be able to understand him? And it turned out he spoke English and only English. And his mom was trying to get him to start learning more Vietnamese. So she's trying to exclusively speak to him in Vietnamese. But he goes to English speaking school. He watches YouTube all in English. He watches cartoons. When he was at my house, he's like, put on Spider-Man, Auntie Kim, put on Spider-Man. And he watches Spider-Man. And they speak English over there. They all speak English. And it's not because they're spies and that's why they speak English. They speak English because they watch English speaking stuff. They learn English in schools. They're taught from the time they're young, and they have to take English speaking classes, English language classes all throughout their whole time in school. Unlike us here in the United States, we take like French or German for a couple of years or Spanish for a couple of years. So they do speak English. That is my cousin. She married, like I said, he speaks Chinese. That's his primary language. But he's not Chinese. He's Malaysian, but he speaks Chinese. And he doesn't speak Vietnamese. He's been living in Vietnam for 17 years. He still doesn't speak Vietnamese. I'm like, how do you get around? He says, well, everybody speaks English. So that's just the way it is in the world. English has become the global language, and it will stay the global language. I think that probably people will start learning Chinese, and there will be a push towards learning Mandarin. I have other cousins who speak Mandarin fluently, white cousins who speak Mandarin fluently. But I still think English will ultimately prevail as the world global language, even if other languages do become very predominant. Spanish is very predominant. I think Chinese also, with billions of people speaking Chinese, but ultimately I still think English will be the one. Let's go to what Marco Rubio has to say. So Secretary of State, he's having this is a Senate Foreign Relations Committee, and he's talking about China, saying, it's pretty soon we're going to be dependent on China. Watch this.
If we stay on the road we're on right now, in less than 10 years, virtually everything that matters to us in life will depend on whether China will allow us to have it or not. Everything from the blood pressure medicine we take to what movies we get to watch, and everything in between, we will depend on China for it. They have come to dominate the critical mineral industry supplies throughout the world. Everywhere in the world, they've now established critical mineral rights. Even those who want to see more electric cars, no matter where you make them, those batteries are almost entirely dependent on the ability of the Chinese and the willingness of the Chinese Communist Party to produce it and export it to you. So if we don't change course, we are going to live in a world where much of what matters to us on a daily basis, from our security to our health, will be dependent on whether the Chinese allow us to have it or not. That's an unacceptable outcome.
I'm curious what he means by if we don't change course, because knowing Marco Rubio, that means war. We need to cut China off. We need to go to war. We need to do whatever we can to hobble China. Now, how has China been able to get this upper hand on us that Marco Rubio is now pointing out? I don't think he's wrong in a lot of ways. And I do think we need to change course. I just don't know if it's the way Marco Rubio thinks. But the way that China was able to get access to all of those minerals and resources was through making really good friends with everybody in Africa. Rather than going around and bombing and setting up military bases and strong arming and using their currency as a weapon and bullying, they instead started striking business deals all around the world. And those business deals made them a lot of friends. And now those friends want to keep doing business with them. And rather than being bullied by us with bombs, they'd rather do business with China. And that has worked. That strategy has worked. And we played the other game for far too long, and it has backfired on us. We have hardly any investment in Africa. China's been building up a massive amount. The United States, rather than competing and going in there and trying to do business deals ourselves, what did we do? We instead said to the African people, you're being duped by China. China's going in there and they're doing these deals, but you just be warned. Those deals are bad deals. Those are bad. You're being duped. They're going to own you. They're going to control you. And Africa just said, shut up. I mean, really, Africa just said to us, shut up. We're doing deals. They're finally helping us build our nations here in Africa. We're better off with the Chinese, just F off, guys. I mean, that's really what they said to us. And so that strategy has not worked. China had a different strategy. It has worked. I do think that there is something to be worried. There is a fear. The fear, and what I think we have to look out for is China does censor. We saw that, right? So they censor ideas, they censor certain things. Now, whether they're right or wrong, it doesn't matter if what they're censoring is, if they're really truly censoring actual misinformation. I don't really care. It's still censorship. And what they do, for example, we've seen in the past, like with the Uyghur genocide or the Uyghur concentration camps. I don't agree that happened. There was a lot of propaganda here in the United States saying there was Uyghur genocide, Uyghur concentration camps. I'm sorry, guys, but you should know now, because I've always said, look, show me the evidence of that. I don't believe it until I see some evidence. No one's ever been able to produce any evidence. They just make claims. You all should know now, those of you who are skeptical of that and say, what? There's, of course, a Uyghur genocide. You now know what a genocide looks like. You've seen it happen for the last 15 months. You know that there's ample evidence that comes out when there's a genocide. The Israelis couldn't even hold it back. So there would be evidence of a genocide if there was a genocide. That's just the way that it is. We haven't seen any of that. So I never really believed in this. I just don't see it. So it isn't. So China, what they would do is they would have all of these athletes, right, that are wearing like Nike and Adidas and all of these products that are manufactured in China. And China would basically go to these big companies and say, look, you want to continue doing business with us here in China, continue having your factories here in China. Then when you give endorsement deals to these athletes need to know a couple of things. First of all, they're not allowed to talk about some Uyghur genocide that didn't happen. And they're not allowed to talk about Taiwan or stand up for Taiwan. Taiwan is part of China. There's certain they're not allowed to speak their mind or say these certain things. Now, whether or not China's right on that, whether or not, yeah, sure. Just like I agree, I don't think this Uyghur genocide happened. But I also think a person should be able to say that they think a genocide is happening. And China's going around and saying, no, you're not allowed to say that. So as long as you want to keep doing these business deals with us. So they use the power of their business deals in order to control narratives and ideas. We use a lot of other threats. That is, to me, the biggest worry in my mind about China is our own selves and our own greed and and the greed of our corporations. And the greed of our corporations will lead them to basically cave to whatever China wants because they want to keep doing business over there. And that is maybe something that needs to be more pointed out and discussed. It's not China doing this to us. It's us selling out. We basically whore ourselves out and will do anything for money, including censor Americans and say, okay, whatever China wants. So we don't have to do anything that China wants to do, but we do it, like Mark Zuckerberg, for example. Facebook wanted to be in China in the early days. This was like over 10 years ago. Facebook wanted to be in China. China said, no, we're not going to let you in because, China says, look, we'll let you in, but you have to censor certain things. And Facebook said, this was when Mark Zuckerberg had principles. And he says, well, I'm an American. We don't do that. And China says, well, then you're not doing business in China. He tried anything that he could to get China to change their minds. If you remember, there was all these images of Mark Zuckerberg in China wearing a mask, like jogging or something. He was trying to make friends with the Chinese government, and he never made any inroads. He was never able to do it. China did not allow Facebook to be in China. So then Mark, that's when he started to change. And he started to say, well, okay, maybe I will allow some censorship. And so he started censoring at the behest of the American government. And then he started to think, so now that I'm doing that here, because it's actually now okay to censor here in America, then maybe now I can start making some inroads in China. China still said, no, we got our own thing and we don't want that. But that's a showcasing of the power that, if these companies now, if they're looking at China and they're salivating over their big population, they're going to say, look, I'll do whatever you want. And if you want me to censor my employees or the people, or you don't want us to make certain products or whatever it is, we'll do it. We just want to do the business there. That's the fear. That's where China's power comes into play. It's not that they're going to exert some sort of military. It's not like they're going to bomb us if we keep saying certain things. They're not going to exert that sort of control over us, but they will be able to exert economic control. So as long as our greedy businesses decide to whore themselves out, and they will, because nothing's stopping them. I mean, we're seeing it already. The raping of American land is already happening, where we allow all these foreigners to come in and buy our land. That shouldn't be allowed. China doesn't let that happen. Vietnam doesn't let that happen. In order to buy property in Vietnam, you have to be a Vietnamese citizen. Bottom line, that's the end of the story. You have to be. Same with Mexico. They give you a lease. If you're not Mexican, you can have land there, but only for a certain period of time, and then it goes back to the government. So the United States, though, we're just like, hey, highest bidder wins. We don't care where they are. We don't care that there's some big foreign multinational company and they come in and they buy up all of our farmland. Like, so be it. And then the next thing we know, we don't own any of our land. The next thing we know, Americans own, it's not to this point yet, but I could see a future where Americans own only, all of American citizenship only owns 5% of American land. It's all owned by these wealthy foreigners because we allow it. Everything's up for sale, including our politicians. Oh, you want us to have certain policies in your favor? Just fund my campaign. Oh, yeah, you can't do it because you're a foreigner, but if you set it up in this particular way, we can get around it. We can work around it. You just have to have somebody at your company that's an American citizen and make all the donations through them. Perfect. Deal done. They could even be a dual citizen. That's okay. They can have dual nationality and actually be more loyal to the other country. But as long as they're holding American citizenship, they can donate to politicians' campaigns. We have allowed ourselves to be put in this position where everything is up for sale. Everything's up for sale. China doesn't do that, but China, not being dumb, they're like, look, you put yourself in this situation. If you're going to sell it, I'm going to buy it. So they then take advantage of this, our own system. Now, they couldn't take advantage of it if we didn't have our system set up this way, but we do. So the real, we are our own worst enemy, and then we allow others to take advantage of us. We've seen that with Israel. They've taken great advantage of the system. They figured it out. They're like, oh, well, everything's for sale over there. So all we have to do is start buying off the politicians. We see Big Pharma do it. We see the military industrial complex do it. And, what people should be afraid of, especially the real pro-Israel crowd, is they should see the danger of that. That, okay, yeah, you're fine with it when Israel does it, but you won't be fine with it when China does it. And China will be able to do it just the same way as Israel did, because the system is set up that way. Nothing prevents that. So that's the issue. That's where China's power can be exerted. So Marco Rubio saying we got to do something about it. We have to course correct. I agree, but it's not mean mug China and start, war posturing against them. We have to change our own internal system and prioritize Americans and prioritize protecting Americans. We need to become a little bit more isolationist. America first. Those are the priorities we need to have in order to insulate ourselves from these outside forces, whether they be Israeli or Chinese or Turkish or Russian or whatever. We need to insulate ourselves so that we can have a strong, thriving country for Americans by Americans. But, I don't think that's the direction they're going to go in when it comes to how we're going to protect ourselves from Chinese influence. Also, you're going to see a lot of these younger people, they're going to be on, these apps. They're going to see the Chinese people, and they are going to be indoctrinated into liking the Chinese system. They're, most people are not political. So most Americans are not political. So most Americans are going to say, I don't care about politics. Like, if I can live like that and have groceries and have nice things and live like that and have health insurance, and fine, I'll be a communist. I don't care. I don't care about all of that free speech stuff and social media things and talking about that. I just want to make cookies on this new app and do makeup tutorials. That's all I want to do. That's the vast majority of the people. So if we don't change the quality of life in America, if we don't get America in control for Americans, and if we don't do protectionist policies for Americans, then all of our youth are going to see other countries and they're going to want to immigrate there. And now China, by the way, will probably welcome that immigration. They have a population crisis, right? They had the one-child policy for a long time. All those kids are now in their 40s. They've now been allowed to have 2 or 3 kids, but they do have a population issue. And so maybe China will be like, okay, we're allowing immigration. All these Americans are fleeing to China. That's not outside of the realm of reality. That very well could happen. And they become the country that they already have. They actually already have, but people are just so blind to it. They've already become the country where the top of the top go there to work. The brain drain is happening towards China. Why is that? Well, the best engineers in the world, when you look at all the big engineering companies, they're losing engineers to China. Why is that? Because China doesn't have the red tape, the bureaucracy, the regulations, these big designers and engineers. They've got a great idea. They want to put it out there. They want their invention out there. In China, it takes 2 months. In the United States, it takes 10 years. And in Europe, it takes 10 years, maybe longer because of all of the regulation. So they go to China and they can see their invention and what they've thought about and slaved over and worked on. And they could see that invention just come to life in 2 months. So we're already seeing a brain drain to China, but people are blind to that. They don't want to believe it. They want to say, no, China's failing. Their real estate market is crashing. Their economy is crashing. I hear this all the time. Oh, give me a break. How many times has the United States real estate crashed? We've had real estate's crash over and over. Economies crashed. The value of the dollar's gone down here and there. I mean, these things happen. That's just normal. That's just ebbs and flows of economies. So don't get caught up in this. Oh, they're crashing this time. They're going to go down the drain. And then what do you think is going to happen to all those big, beautiful skyscrapers? You think they're just going to suddenly go empty? You know, the place is going to go to ruin. The next thing you know, all these Chinese people are going to be in rags on the side of the roads, like begging for food. I mean, I don't think they're going back to that. I don't think they're going back to that. But we are certainly reeling. But look at our place. Look at America. We are reeling into that. And as we sit there and scream about China and worry about China, here we are. We're actually reeling into that sort of society that we claim that they have over there, which they clearly don't, or that they're going to have, and they're just clearly not. Thanks for watching this clip from the full Kim Iverson Show. If you want to watch the full show, visit KimIversonShow.com. The show airs every Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. Again, it's KimIversonShow.com. See you there.